that this meeting... Oh, well, this said it for me there. Did you hear that? This meeting is being recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube. So if you have a problem with that, you are obviously entitled to take your face off the screen, etc. Otherwise, as I say, we will carry on with a recorded meeting. So welcome everybody to the Ward Forum. This is going to be a relatively informal meeting tonight for a number of reasons. We had timed it on today's date for several reasons. One is because originally we were expecting to be out of lockdown, if you remember, and we were quite keen to get back to in-person meetings. That was a no-no. Secondly, we were expecting the consultation on the Barr master plan to be open by now, and again, that's not happened. So there was going to be a big presentation on that. We're going to talk about the Commonwealth Games funds. That the officers will tell us how they stand, and we have at least one person here ready to tell us in more detail about the exciting project that's associated with that. But again, we're not going to hear, I don't suppose we're going to hear the full range of proposals coming for that fund, and we will hear about what the ideas are for taking that forward when we get to that item. Secondly, if you want to speak, I'm trying to view everybody, but obviously if you're not on screen, then I can't see you. If you are on screen, you might catch my attention just by raising your hand. Otherwise, please use the chat box. I'll try and pick you up from there, or the reaction tab on Zoom. So there you are. I've put a thumb up there, or a hand clap. The thumb up I would take as an indication of wishing to speak. That I would just take as an indication that somebody's very happy. And as I said, we'll be relatively informal tonight because we're not, we've not got a very strict agenda. What I'd like to do at the end, when we do any other business, is maybe see if there's any specific items that anybody wants on a future agenda to be discussed, where we'd invite council officers to come and do a presentation to us on a particular aspect of council work. We hope that as lockdown ends, we can return to in-person meetings, and then we will return to our previous schedule, we hope, of having the third Wednesday of every month, hopefully in the Perry Hall Methodist Church, so that we have a consistent pattern of meetings that you can attend. Right. There's no comments on those reactions. We don't do minutes now for these, so we move straight to the next item, which is the Commonwealth Games Celebrating Communities Fund. And I think that it's Mina is going to tell us a bit about it, first of all, what's involved and how it's going to be allocated. Where are you, Mina?
Here.
Yes.
Thank you all for inviting me to talk to you a little bit about the Celebrating Communities Fund. So, as you know, my name is Mina Barr. I work for Locality, which is a national network of community organisations. We are, as I said, we're national. We have membership of around 1,300 community-led organisations. I'm based in Birmingham and I cover the sort of West Midlands region, so I look after our members here, but also deliver some consultancy support to community organisations. That can be anything from taking over their local park or community centre to setting up housing, any type of sort of social action really that the community are involved in. And so Locality and Birmingham Community Matters have been chosen by Birmingham City Council, by the Neighbourhood Development Support Unit, to act as supporters on the Celebrating Communities Commonwealth Games grant funding. So if it's okay, I am just going to quickly whiz through some of the details of the fund. but I'll also talk to you about how you can access support, sort of support for your applications for the next round. I'll talk to you about the sort of process and the structure of the fund, and we've got colleagues as well from NDSU here if there are sort of more detailed questions. So I'll whiz through. I won't take up too much of your time because I think it's always interesting to get to questions and ideas for the sort of Perry Barr Award, really. So as I said, yeah, it's a celebrating communities grant funding, and the aim of the Small Grants Fund is around engaging and sort of celebrating, I suppose, the Commonwealth Games coming to Birmingham next year. So hopefully everyone's suitably excited about that, and I guess you guys are pretty much in the heart of it. So hopefully feeling some of that excitement already. So the aim, of course, is to get sort of particularly local communities engaged in sort of celebrating and engaged in the Commonwealth Games, but also to celebrate our links to the Commonwealth as well. So the grant programme is available across all 69 wards across Birmingham, and the idea is to run activities against the following theme. And the first is Get Active, the second is Ready, Steady, Fun, and the third is around celebrating culture. And Lydia, I think, is going to talk to you a little bit about a sort of a sister, if you like, funding programme around sort of cultural celebration and celebrating that across Birmingham. So yes, the Celebrating Communities is very much focused on local communities. It's a small grants fund programme, and as I said, it's about sort of engagement and celebrating sort of our links to the Commonwealth as well as the Commonwealth Games coming to Birmingham. So there's 2 funding rounds, the first of which has now closed. That closing date was the 1st of June, and round 2 opens in October. So I suppose there's a good lead-in time now for you to be thinking about what sort of applications, what sort of projects you'd like to be running in the lead up to the Commonwealth Games next year. So wards have been awarded different amounts of funding, and it's up to sort of the local ward forums to really decide how your total amount will be split between rounds. So I had a quick check before I came on today, and Perry Barr has been awarded £28,600. So I'm not completely sure whether there have been many applications in the first round, but I suppose the idea is for round 2, you'll have a significant amount of that grant allocation to spend and to commit on sort of project activities that you want to see happen in your local area. I won't go through each of the funds, each of the themes, sorry, unless anyone wants me to, because I think it's always interesting to get people's ideas of what they'd like. I suppose to sort of summarise, pretty much anything that a local community wants to do, which is either celebrating your local community, so particularly sort of around sort of our diverse histories and our diverse cultures, sort of in our local communities, but things also around getting active. So anything that helps people to get out and to get active will be supported, as well as improving your local space. So it's getting the area games ready, I suppose is the way to describe it. So in summary, pretty much most of the sort of activities that help and celebrate local communities. So I will just quickly tell you what can be funded and the core criteria. So the core criteria, proposals will need to be able to explain how they involve local people. So as I said, it should be really sort of locally rooted, very much sort of grassroots activity and projects. You should also be able to explain sort of links to the Commonwealth and or the Commonwealth Games. So it could be sports activities, or it could be exploring sort of the cultures and the countries of the Commonwealth. And crucially, and I suppose this is why it's particularly interesting for you here, how these proposals or activities support your local ward plan and priorities. So the idea really should be trying to address those things that you've already worked to identify sort of in these sort of past few years, really. So that's really important about sort of its local priorities and how your project addresses those. And it's crucial that projects are able to explain how citizens get the maximum benefit from the Commonwealth Games. And then just in terms of what can be funded, most things can be funded, most activity costs or core costs, or those costs that are essential to running the activity. So if you are paying staff already but want to use some of their time to deliver some of these activities or projects, then you can do that. What you can't do is just fund business as usual activities. This has to be in addition to your existing activities. And of course, they can be sort of one-off activity costs. So it could be a big community celebration when and if we're all allowed to be together again. But also, so it could be ongoing activity costs. So it might be a series of events that you want to do sort of in the lead up to the Commonwealth Games. And you can also use the funding to fund sort of capital costs and equipment costs. And it's really crucial if you do want capital costs that you have a scout around and you get some quotes to understand what those capital costs would consist of. We'll quickly go through the process, if that's okay. Do give me a nod, Chairman, if I'm sort of running out of time. But just to say, when round 2 opens in October, you can access the guidance and the application forms. We will also, so Birmingham Community Matters and Locality will be running, we sort of have run and will continue to run grant guidance workshops. So for those of you who are interested, but probably want to find out a little bit more about the application process and the grant guidance, we'll be running those workshops from September onwards. So people can jump on and join us then. Those applications are submitted to our colleagues at NDSU, who will review them just to make sure they're hitting the Commonwealth Games and funding priorities. Once those proposals are reviewed, if applications need support or need a bit of strengthening, they're passed back to us. So either myself or colleagues at Birmingham Community Matters will work with you to help strengthen your application and just make sure you're able to run your projects and your activities successfully. And then the really exciting bit and the really crucial bit, I guess, is the ward forums, and this is where the decision making will happen. So all of those applications will go to a local decision making ward forum where local people will decide on the activities and the proposals they want to see happen in their local community. And alongside our grant guidance workshops, we will also be running support sessions on sort of pitching your idea and presenting, although I'm sure lots of people are very good at it anyway, so may not need our support. So I guess from Locality and Birmingham Community Matters point of view, we're here to walk the journey with the applicants. So whilst we don't have any influence on whether your application gets through, we want to give you the best and fighting chance, I suppose, to get your application through successfully and for you to be able to run your project successfully as well. So as I said, Birmingham Community Matters and Locality will be delivering those grant guidance workshops. We already have, and what I will do once I've finished speaking is I'll pop a link into the chat box for those of you who want to explore sort of the grant a little bit further. So Birmingham Community Matters has got a dedicated web page to the Celebrating Communities grant programme, so you can find out lots of information, more information on guidance, but also helpful how-to guides, so how to set up different types of activities and sort of ideas on community engagement and community involvement as well. So we have already set that up, so you can access that already. And if any of you do feel the urge to, there's already a recorded version of our grant guidance workshop on there as well. So if you are feeling a little bit bored and you just want to find out a little bit more, there's already a video recording of one of the grant guidance workshops we've delivered already on there as well. So we will also, nearer the time, deliver workshops to groups on how to run COVID safe activities, and that's obviously in line with the guidance at the time. So we will, as I said, be helping you and walking the journey with you along that along your sort of proposal journey, I guess. I will put all the links in to the website and to the grant guidance and to sort of the more detailed presentation into the chat box. But for now, I think it was a pretty brief run through, but I'm really happy to talk about it a little bit more, or if people have questions about it, I'm happy to take any questions I might be able to answer.
Okay, thanks, Mina. I just in a second we'll see if there's any immediate questions on that. There are a couple of people I've invited to talk about projects that are being put forward for it, like, if you like, a chance to practice your pitch. I think the ward forum you're talking about is not actually a ward forum as we're used to. This is being organised by an external agency, which does allow us as councillors not to have to pretend to be neutral, because we don't have any more say than anybody else in it. And sort of the way, the way you talked about it was a little bit about, this kind of meeting should be helping to shape ideas, as well as sort of directing towards decisions. So the two we can look at tonight, Barr and Bloom and Perry Hall Park, we can help shape them from this meeting. If unless there's any immediate questions to Mina, I suggest we bring in Lydia next to talk about the Creative Cities grant funding, and then we'll find out about the local ideas that we know about so far. Obviously not sure, you don't seem to have a list, Mina, of what's been put in for Perry Barr, so we don't know what else there is out there. So is that somebody speaking to the meeting or just in the background?
Councillor Hunt, I don't think you've seen my hand, but if I can come in.
No, I can't see it.
It's Neil.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Neil, yeah.
Yeah, great. So I just wanted to update the meeting that that there have been 5 applications that have been received for Perry Barr. As Mina explained, the Neighbourhood Development and Support Unit within which I work, we're responsible for doing the initial appraisals of the applications. So I can't go into the detail of those applications, and I guess 2 of those that have already submitted will be talking at tonight's meeting. But I just wanted to let you know that there have been 5 submitted already. So in regard to the project selection ward meetings that are going to be facilitated by an external organisation, the timescale that we're given for those to take place are kind of at the end, any time between the end of the July up to September. So that process will happen once we know how many applications that we've got that are suitable for consideration. And in regards to the invitees to the project selection ward meeting, what we're doing, we're working with the community governance manager, so Kay, who manages this meeting, and will ensure that it will only be the applicants that are invited to do the pitch. And in regards to the decision making, that will just be the people that regularly attend ward meetings, albeit virtual at the moment, and that are on the circulation list, because we just have to ensure that obviously the people that are considering them and voting are people that are participating at the moment, rather than people kind of coming in specially just to to vote for projects that have been submitted. So hopefully that's helpful background as well.
That's interesting, because that's just news to me. So what you're doing is you're defining the circulation list, if you like, as the ward forum, and that's a group that then makes the decisions.
No, so at the moment, Kay holds the details of all of the participants that have attended ward forum meetings. So in terms of the decision making, it's a participatory decision making process. So we want to ensure that elected members and all of those people that have contributed to the ward forum in the past, that they're responsible for making the selection in regards to what projects are suitable for the ward, because we understand that some groups potentially could invite other people in, if you like, to weight the decisions around their particular proposals. So we just want to be as fair as possible. And myself and the other members of the Neighbourhood Development and Support Unit, because we're involved in appraising the proposals, there's a conflict of interest for us. So hence the reason why we're not involved. We've got somebody independent in to facilitate those meetings.
That's interesting. Thanks. Councillor Jan had a question. Maureen? You need to unmute yourself, Maureen, if you're speaking. Yeah. We still can't hear you. Any chance you can type your question? I think she's struggling with connections. I'll ask, just trying to find I've lost the chat. I'll ask Maureen to type her question and we'll bring it up later. So, Lydia, do you want to come in and tell us about Creative Cities grant first, and then we'll hear from 3Bs and from Ellen Banks, Perry Hall.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to meet you all. So my name's Lydia and I'm the Grants Manager for the Birmingham 2022 Cultural Programme, and in particular the Creative City Grants Programme. So the Cultural Programme for Birmingham 2022 is a 6-month arts festival that wraps around the 11 days of sport for the Commonwealth Games. It's a regional festival, and it's a curated festival, and it's kind of all of those big spectacular moments that you experience at where arts and culture and sport come together. That's what that cultural programme is for next year. So Birmingham City Council have very generously given us a substantial amount of money so that we can have a focused grants programme solely for Birmingham as part of that cultural programme. So this is an opportunity for Birmingham's communities to really celebrate their creativity, to celebrate their youthfulness, their diversity, and just have that kind of platform really on a global level. So not-for-profit Birmingham-based groups and organisations of any kind, so long as their turnover is under £1 million. So it's faith organisations, schools, community, arts organisations can apply for up to £20,000 to bring communities and artists together to collaborate to create a new piece of artwork that would form part of this festival next year, and that would be between March up until the end of August. So it could be in anything, everything. A local litter picking group might want to apply to work with an artist in their local area to do something around environment and premiere and show that piece of work next year. A local dance group might want to work with a new dance artist or with the artists they currently work with to create something. So it can be anything and everything. And when we talk about communities and artists collaborating together, what we mean is that those communities and artists come together to decide and create that piece of work together. So it's not that an artist already has an idea and says, oh, this is what we should do, and brings the community on that journey with them. It's a journey that they grow and develop and travel together. Communities, what do we mean by communities? So for our funding, we mean communities of all types. So we're talking about communities of geography. So people, Birmingham residents who live close to each other, communities with common interests. So groups of Birmingham residents who have an interest in something, and that could be improving their local environment. It could be attending a book club at the local library. It could be attending a swimming class down the road, anything. And then we also talk about groups of Birmingham residents who have common characteristics, So attend is a youth centre, or their common characteristic is their age. So it could be faith, it could be gender, it could be ethnicity, it could be age. So it's really, really broad in terms of the communities that we want to engage. We're not bound by ward boundaries at all. This purely is focused on communities. However, obviously there's that element around communities of geography, and it might be that a community is a community residents association for a couple of roads in an area, and they want to work with an artist to make something happen in their area in a particular ward, and that's really exciting. So it's a lot of money. It's the first kind of, I worked in the city for a very long time, and we've never had this scale of money. Like I said, although we're not bound by wards, I think it really is helpful to understand the scale. So the money that we've got is enough to fund 2 £10,000 projects in every single ward of the city. And again, we're not bound by wards, but I just think that helps people to really understand the amount of money that is actually being invested in the city and the amazing things that we can make happen through that. So we want to reach every corner of the city. We want to work with a full diverse range of communities. We actually had our first round one deadline today. So I'm really excited. I've already scanned through the applications and are just absolutely thrilled to see the full range of different types of applicants from across the whole of the city. The second round of funding is on the 1st of October. And again, just like Mina's done, I'll put a link to our information in the chat, and we'll be providing the same sort of kind of information, answering question and advice and guidance sessions for whoever's interested. So I know you're probably all quite involved in your local community in some way or another, or you definitely know somebody else that is, whether it's your neighbour or a relative down the road or a local community centre that maybe has moved some things online but is still very active. So it really is just about getting kind of all of the information about this grant fund to as many people as possible that are in a position to apply. So yeah, any questions?
Thank you, Lydia. Can I take Councillor Jan's question first, unless she's got a mic working, which is mainly intended for Mina, which is, can a local active resident apply for a small amount of money who has no organisation or company for their section, i.e. their neighbourhood of Perry Barr?
Yeah, I did reply to it in the chat, but might be more helpful to talk it through. So yes, they can. What unincorporated, so those organisations that don't have a legal structure, or if you are a single resident or a small group of residents that want to either deliver or run an activity, you can apply for funding. You will need to get a sponsor organisation. That organisation will need to have a legal structure, so it can be a charity, it can be a community interest company, but a local sort of community organisation that has a recognised legal structure. So they will need to sort of sponsor you to act as your sort of fund holder, if you like. But if you are struggling, or if that resident is struggling to find a local community group that fits that criteria, they can get in touch with NDSU, or they can get in touch with us, and we can help sort of connect them to their local networks.
Thank you. Karen Davis. Unmute.
I'm unmuted now.
Yeah.
Friends of Perry Park, obviously totally involved with what's going on for the Commonwealth Games. Can we get people involved with doing stuff with graffiti along the canal and in the park itself? Can we get funding for that? As you know, John, that we've managed to get funds to do the wildflower meadow within the park. So that's going ahead. Can we have some, Neil will know as well, that we're trying to do all that stuff, but it's the graffiti thing that I think that we need to get I wouldn't do graffiti, but you know, there are people that can do stuff. I mean, it looks a bit shabby, shall we say. Perry Park looks a bit shabby.
Where the games are taking place, you can get graffiti removal kits, I think. Mina, would that be that kind of application be eligible?
Yeah, certainly pass the sort of first stage appraisal, I think, and as you said, it's sort of local and it's you know, making the area games ready. Absolutely, Karen. But ultimately, it will be the local community that decide if that's a priority, I guess, for them.
If we have to, we've got the games going ahead and the stadium is going ahead. We know that, but the park itself looks a bit shabby. So
There should be support available from the Alexander construction team, the Friends, so-called Friends of Alexander, shouldn't there as well?
Most definitely, McLaughlin and Harvey are going to help us do the wildflower meadow stuff. So that we're on, they are doing that. So Friends of Perry Park, we're trying to do it, but it's just the looking under the bridges and the around the park itself. I don't know how we can engage people to do nice graffiti. That's a phrase.
Karen, if it's helpful, I can also put it in the chat as well, but obviously locality work with lots of communities across the country. So I am sure many communities and Friends of Parks have faced similar challenges. So if it's helpful, I can try and find some examples of what they've done. That might give you some inspiration for your sort of project or activities. But there's plenty of nice graffiti if anyone's interested in the sort of street art, I think is the name for it. If you're anywhere near Digbeth, it's worth a little visit.
Well, and Neil knows anyway, so Neil DeCosta knows it. So.
If I can come in, just to say that we've had a multitude of applications from right across the city, and what you're trying to do, Karen, definitely fits with the criteria in the sense that, you know, it's a community initiative, it's intergenerational, it's bringing people together, and it just depends on where you would want it to go, whether it would be about removing graffiti and improving the area, you know, in partnership with the community and obviously the you know, the friends, or whether you're specifically looking to, if you like, flip the graffiti thing and convert it into art. So if you're looking to do that, there are a range of different graffiti artists and what have you that are, you know, that live in the neighborhood and live around, that you can create a project out of. So in terms of locality, Birmingham Community Matters and that support, you can be assisted in terms of putting something together. And in terms of artists, as I say, there are other artists that live in neighbouring neighbourhoods that for sure can be part of a project if you wanted to make it into creative, you know, creative experience, which kind of reflects something to do with the community. And I'm sure Lydia will come in on this in terms of how it links to, you know, the fund that she's responsible for. Creative City.
Well, we're most definitely.
Let's bring Lydia back in, Karen, first, because she's waiting to say something about this. Lydia.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, no, I was just going to say exactly that, Karen. We really want Friends of Parks and Open Spaces groups to be applying in to collaborate. Your community, the friends are the membership of your group, being the community that you work with, people who use and visit your park, to collaborate with artists to co-create pieces of artwork and art in the public realm, or you know, murals. It could very well be that piece of artwork that you as a community would be interested in collaborating with an artist to do. Some really interesting stuff. There's a beautifully painted kind of angled fox that's just appeared by Wild Green train station. It's really nice. So some really innovative new artists out there that are really popping up as well. And I think Canal and River Trust are doing lots of activity with artists at the moment about improving kind of the environment along canals and encouraging more people to use canals in a positive way. and improve them. So yeah, and I think as well, it's worth noting that you can match the Creative City grant funding to the culture strand of the Celebrating Communities funding, and vice versa as well. So it might be that you want to apply for quite a reasonable chunk from Creative City and a little bit from Celebrating Community to make something that can be extremely impactful.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Karen.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Good,
No,
good, clear. Good. That probably leads on neatly to hearing from those applications that have gone in that we know of which we know of 2. So Friends of Perry Hall Park have got one in, and I can see Helen Banks here. I've asked her to say a few words about what they're proposing. And you'll have to unmute yourself anyway, Helen. But if you'd like to, I think it'd be helpful to everybody to hear what the Friends of Perry Hall Park have come up with.
Well, I don't want to go into too much because I know Jo's there and she's told me not to do a formal presentation because, to be honest, it's been in rough format. And I've been told that it doesn't meet the Commonwealth Games criteria enough at the moment. So I'm waiting to hear from somebody who's going to help me resubmit it. It's to do with basically a carving into bench of a very focal tree that was a lovely tree at the end of the Japanese garden, which was cut down by the council a couple of years ago, but it had been struck by lightning, and we wanted to carve that into 2 benches, and we have a wood carver who would come and do that and put flowers and animals and things relating to the park on it. But obviously they want more of a Commonwealth theme, so that's got to be rejigged, and possibly an event next Easter. Don't know yet what we'd do. We'd have to obviously get a committee together to plan that. But that would be around, I think they want us to sort of support and prepare people for the games. So that would be aiming to get people involved or enthusiastic about what's coming in August, July and August for the games. We've already got some bunting, and Dorrington School have done some Flowers of the Commonwealth Games posters for us to put up. So we could have a little Easter egg trail with those or something. So it's a matter of getting together and thinking what we went through, but I've still got to get back with Jo and her or somebody from the team to tweak it a bit. I'm presuming that because we put it in, it will still go round in the first round of applications. It hasn't got to be resubmitted for October. We were looking at the other, the cultural arts programme as well, and trying to come up with some ideas for that. But as there's only 2 per ward, we're probably going to be fighting a lot of other people for the money for that. So got to really put our thinking hats on for that. And we've certainly missed the boat for the July one, so it'd have to be the October one. But I'll put it up on Facebook, and I'm getting some nice ideas for that. So I won't go into that now, obviously, but I can let you know more once we've tweaked the bid, so to speak. But that's all I can say at the moment. Thank you, John.
The tree and the bench might fit in with the Creative Cities project by the sound of things. So
we've got a price on that. We've got a price on that, and it's 2,500. So I mean, you know, we'd be looking for a bit more for that than that for the creative arts one, if possible. We've got several artists, mosaic artists. Sorry?
I've got to discourage people from chatting in the chat box because we have to record online what the conversations are that are taking place. So I'm going to read out what's in there.
Oh, right.
Or get people to repeat it because for the record, Mariam Jan said it sounds like an amazing event and hope somebody's going to help them. And Mina says she'll be in touch very shortly. And Lydia says programme,
Thank you,
the
Mina.
Creative City programme isn't bound by ward boundaries, which,
Oh, right.
but it's not, you're not obliged not to be within a ward boundary. I guess a project could be within just one ward. You don't have to cross ward boundaries, do you? No, it can be local. And frankly, where we are, anything in the proximity of the Alexander Stadium should get a few extra points for brightening up the area around the games. Okay, thanks, Helen. And then I'm going to ask Joe Spencer, who is administrator of the Three Bs Neighbourhood Forum, to talk about the Barr in Bloom idea. And just to declare an interest, I chair the Three Bs, which, if you don't know, covers most of the Perry Barr ward and has been developing a neighbourhood plan and has taken on some other functions recently. But Joe will talk about Barr in Bloom, which was an idea brought to the Three Bs by a local resident, doing exactly what Mina said earlier. The local resident gets a local organisation to take up an idea, and Morel brought it to Three Bs along with Moriam Jan, and it was a terrific idea, and it's been brought forward. Joe.
Hi, hello everybody. So the idea that was put forward has been, well, the working title so far is Barr in Bloom, which I think is going to stick because it's pretty good. And the idea is that we have like a competition really in the Three Bs area. We haven't finalised what the competition is going to be yet, but the whole idea is that people improve their own gardens, their own spaces. If people don't have gardens, then they can help their neighbours, or communities can get together to improve their streets. And it's just, the whole project is just all about trying to get the area, which, you know, we are the area surrounding the games. You know, the whole world is going to come into our area and see, and we'd quite like it to look nice. So the idea is we're going to run competitions for people to improve their open spaces, their own streets. And I mean, some of the ideas that we've had are, you know, it could be anything from a hanging basket to an entire street. And we're going to give out prizes and competitions. And I've had conversations with Jade at Arup's, and she pitched it at the a meeting of the contractors. I think it was on Friday last week, or Thursday, Friday last week, about getting some of the contractors and suppliers for the games on board to sponsor categories or sponsor prizes and things. And it's just to try and get the community back on board really with the games and everything around it, and putting it back into a positive, because, you know, it's not much fun here at the moment with the works going on, and we just want to we want to flip that on its head for the people in the area. And so whilst the area in itself will be improved by the games, we want people to feel the benefits, you know, outside their own front door really. So that's the idea behind the Barr in Bloom. But we've put our application in, we haven't heard anything yet, but we are also in the background working on the, you know, the minutiae of it, and trying to think of categories and how we can get everybody from, you know, 2 years old to 100 years old involved, and everybody in between, with regards to categories. You know, we don't want anybody feeling left out, and, you know, to the point where we can get, you know, care home systems and they can do their gardens. And, you know, we just want to try and think of it so we can get absolutely everybody possible involved. And you know, there's prizes get everybody on board, don't they? So we're going to have lots of prizes, because we don't want, we really want to, you know, be able to give everybody a prize, which would be nice. So we, you know, there's going to be a prize, and then there'll be lots of runner-up prizes, because we don't want to put anybody off. We don't want to, you know, if I went up against my neighbours for the gardens, I would lose every single time, but I'd quite like a prize for effort, that type of thing. So that's the plan, that's the idea, and obviously we put our application in hopefully in time. Yeah, and that's the idea. And, you know, if anybody has any ideas, categories, things like that, please let us know, because we want to get as many people involved as we can. obviously, because like you said, Mina, we're the gateway to the games. That's what we are in this area. So hopefully, and I do think, having spoken to a few people, I think people will get on board with it. So that's the plan. That's the idea anyway. So that's the Barr in Bloom.
Thanks, Joe. Mariam John's just typed in to say that she's approached Aston Villa to see if they can find a celebrity judge. Jack Grealish, I think, would be good.
If he's still at the Villa next year.
Well, of course, yes. The other thing about this, the beauty of this idea is not just that it links to the Commonwealth Games, but it also links to the Freebies Neighbourhood Plan. Because the Neighbourhood Plan does something very innovative, which would make the area the first garden suburb outside of London. I think Hampstead in London is a garden suburb. I'm not aware that anywhere else is a garden suburb. And that is not just recognising, but building on what we have in our area. And although we often feel quite despondent about traffic fumes and litter and fly tipping, the fact is that we still remain a very green area. The folds in our hills contribute to some amazing rock gardens that you see along the street fronts. Rocky Lane is a really good example. And our terrific parks that we've already talked about. We are potentially a very green suburb, and we're not particularly a wealthy suburb like some of us. We're a suburb of ordinary people in ordinary homes, but many of them really maintaining terrific environments, and that's to be encouraged. And that's not just for the Commonwealth Games, that's because of where we want to go as a community. Karen Davis was waving at me and she's walked away, so I'll wait till she comes back.
No.
We wanted to bring this to this meeting, not just to tell you about it, but just to continue to pick up ideas about how this should be run, ideas to make it work. Anybody who's interested in getting involved too, because I think there's going to be a few strands of work. We were talking about producing little poster boards, for instance, that, you know, I'm entering Barr in Bloom on lots and lots of gardens would help escalate it. Before I bring you in, Karen.
Karen Davis coming now.
I'm going to check the chat. Just wait a minute. Neil says there have been some similar applications across the city, and this project perfectly fits the criteria. And Mariam says that there will be planning meetings taking place. Karen.
Yeah. As you know, Valerie Edkins and myself we are part of Birmingham Tree People. We now have a leaflet that we're going to put out. The city has, and the leaflet says, the city has over 1 million individual trees to manage in its streets, parks and housing areas. Then there are the woodlands. So if there's 1 million trees and it doesn't include the Lickey Hills or Sutton Park, it's 15 billion in asset value to the city. So, as you know, I'm a tree type person. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what part of the trying to do the build on the trees in on the streets, certainly within Perry Barr, which is what Val and I are doing at the moment, but also the rest of Birmingham City.
Thanks, Karen. I'm just picking up stuff in chat. Helen said, will the Royal Horticultural Society be involved to come and judge? That's an idea. It's certainly worth talking to them. I did look at their criteria for Britain in Bloom, which are quite detailed and specialist. And the question is whether they'd be able to work alongside community judges or not, because we're interested not just in botanical expertise, but actually people who are making an effort. one aspect would be the most improved neighbourhood, for instance. So you could have a neighbourhood not just with great gardens, but also who've made a real effort to get the litter off the street, and to keep it off the street, and they're doing community litter picking as well. So to keep a neighbourhood spruced up. So we're looking at prizes for neighbourhoods as well as for individuals in this. Let me just look more at the comments coming through. Councillor Jan says freebies does need this that are willing to deliver and work hard to make changes, as well as Helen's projects. She says we need these projects to be accepted. And Mina's asked about the neighbourhood plan, and I suggest we're going to have a brief update on that after this. So I'll tell you where we are with that, but the answer to your question is yes. Okay, are there any more questions or comments or ideas? And micro gardens too, trying to get some of the ideas out. So that, again, recognizing that some people have maintained sort of luxuriant front gardens, and some people have had to pave over their front gardens. But one of the aims of the freebies is to encourage people who have driveways, not to tell them they can't have them, but to encourage them to think about how they can be more environmentally friendly. So micro gardens, there's likely to be prizes for micro gardens, which is like planters on fronts, people who are doing creative things with their parking areas, because actually just putting an end to some of the excessive tarmacking of fronts will help the overall environment, and particularly some of the flooding problems we have.
Councillor Hunt, Lydia's got a hand up to speak, I think.
Okay, Lydia.
Thank you, Kay and Councillor. Yeah, no, I just messaged Jo and said about possibly linking whether they'd looked at the floral trails that the Birmingham City Council Parks Department do. Obviously, they have a big Chelsea flower display most years, and they've won gold many times. And I wonder whether you'd spoken to them about adding, bringing kind of what they may be doing something floral next year and making sure that they do something in your area. Also, in terms of kind of communities collaborating with artists, there's lots of environmental artists, lots of artists that use willow and environmental materials to create new pieces of artwork. So there's the potential for communities to collaborate with artists to create sculptures or structures that then could be kind of like a little trail or something like that. So there's lots of different opportunities for bringing creatives into something like the project and scheme that you're discussing. But I've suggested Jo emails me to arrange an individual advice session so that we could talk about the potential around that in more detail, and bring anyone else in who might be appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Lydia. Any more comments or questions on these sections? Right, I lost my agenda somewhere, but we will move on with the agenda. And the next item is just going to be an update on the two plans. First of all, the Perry Barr master plan, which many of you will have seen and heard from Rebecca Farr about. And this is a plan that the council is doing, which links the Alexander Stadium to the new development down in Perry Barr, roughly speaking, the Birchfield Island. And they call this a master plan. They were hoping to have this ready for consultation by now, but it's been delayed a couple of weeks. So we may have a joint meeting with the master planners over the summer to talk as a ward forum about our response to their ideas. I haven't yet seen anything that alarms me, and that's always good news when you're dealing with the council. It's and you know, we have had discussions in some detail about some aspects of it. They are also bringing on board a lot of ideas from the Freebies neighbourhood plan, which is good. So far what we've seen, and the representative of the Freebies has joined Maureen and myself in a number of meetings with them, has been relatively promising. And it may well be something that can take forward some of what we want to see happen. But that will emerge in a couple of weeks. There's not really a lot more to say about it at the moment. The main thing is not to get the different plans mixed up, because I think that it's what we're trying to do is make sure there's no confusion. So the Freebies neighbourhood plan, second one, which we have been working on as a community since 2016, and in fact 2015, because when you do a neighbourhood plan, as Mina will know from localities, it can be quite a protracted process, is very close to completion. It is currently sitting with an independent examiner, in effect a government inspector, who is scrutinising it and asking lots of detailed questions. So far doesn't seem to have had any concerns about the overall concept of the plan, the Freebies neighbourhood plan. And if anybody here isn't familiar with it and wants a brief summary, please indicate. Otherwise, I'm going to assume some familiarity, because otherwise we keep going over the same ground. I gave a flavour of it anyway earlier in the previous item, creating a garden suburb and using the planning process a little bit better at the very local level to encourage people who are doing small developments to be more environmentally conscious, to ensure they don't have an impact on flooding risk, which is a huge risk in the area, and also that they enhance the environment. And alongside that, a lot of other ideas for environmental enhancements in the ward. So again, that is currently not in limbo, but it's with the independent examiner. After that independent examination, there will probably have to be some amendments to the plan. All being well, it will then come back for a long-awaited community referendum on the Freebies plan. Alongside that, and should I mention this now? Yes, I'll mention it now, and we need to have another proper discussion on this. Alongside that is the concept of introducing a parish council into the Freebies area, which we talked about during the consultation on the Freebies, which would go to a community referendum, which the council is very keen on, but as a community, and certainly this ward forum, had a lot of outstanding questions about it, and we do need to arrange a session with some people with experience of urban parish community councils to answer those questions before we take it any further. Any comments, questions on those items? Okay, Ms. Mina, we've had a lot of funding from localities already, and we're just about to put in for our final tranche of funding, all being well.
Oh, that's good news. And I was just going to say before I shoot off and get some dinner. Firstly, thank you all for inviting me to the meeting, but also it may be worth talking to, if you haven't already, Walsall Heath Strategic Partnership, because they are looking to they're certainly looking to explore sort of town council in Walsall Heath. I think you may already have been in touch with them, but certainly locality are hoping to do some support work with them, and of course it's part of the sort of localism agenda. So sorry, this is a bit of a plug, but do get in touch with locality if there are things that we can help with, sort of aside from the Celebrating Communities grant program.
That's interesting. So you can help with possibly the parish council development as well. We are aware of and have some contact with Walsall Heath and also the Jewellery Quarter. There's 3 of us in the shortlist. It's not a shortlist. It's 3 neighbourhoods. A council, as identified, is moving forward on this. But we are very I'm almost going to say desperate, because when we were trying to consult on this 18 months ago, I think it was, we really struggled to get any outside expertise or information about parish councils not so much to answer to tell people how they work elsewhere. And we were waiting. We were about to have a presentation from Frankly Parish Council at the Ward Forum, and then lockdown happened in March 2020, and it didn't happen. Frankly Parish Council is one I think we're very interested in knowing how that works, because that seems to have the similar concept as to what people are looking for around here. We're a very community-based organisation.
So if it is helpful, and forgive me, folks, for hijacking the agenda slightly, but Birmingham City Council are members of locality, and one of the things that we can do is to help connect you up with other organisations that are similar. So if you were interested in talking to another sort of urban neighbourhood town parish council, we can try and find another.
That'd be good, yeah. 3Ps, in fact, I think has individual membership purchased by the council as a pioneer place.
Yeah, well,
I think we've got access to you, definitely. So Joe Spencer's writing all this down to action.
Do get in touch, Joe, and then yeah, we can follow it up from there.
They're about connections, and I'm conscious my mic comes and goes a bit. So can you hear me now, Helen?
Yes, thank you. It just keeps freezing up.
Yeah,
I didn't know whether it was just me or
isn't it?
to everybody.
That's why we need to get back to a meeting in person, isn't it? These sort of meetings are very difficult on Zoom. Any more comments around those items? Okay, I don't think there are. No. Okay, so Inspector Hill still not with us, but that's fine, because we've had
no, Councillor Hunt, with perfect timing, I've just admitted him in. He's just joining as we speak. So
okay, well, let's
give
move
him
to
a
the
couple of seconds
local
to get in.
police. Let's let him in. We have got something substantial been asked on any other business, which will keep us going for a while, I suspect. But here he is. He's just joining us.
There he is.
Inspector Hill, are you able to unmute yourself and reveal yourself? Hello.
Hi, good evening, Councillor. Good evening, everybody. Firstly, apologies, I couldn't join you straight away today. But I'm Nick Hill, so I'm the new constituency inspector for Perry Barr, and so as part of my role, I want to make as many of these as possible and listen to what people have to say and listen to what's important to you. So yeah, hi, Councillor, and hello, everyone.
Hello, Inspector. I missed you the other day. Councillor Jan is here, but she's lost in the midst of a galaxy. You'll see on your screen, so she's struggling to participate. But she is here, and she's typing in chat when she has a comment to make. Can I hand the floor over to you to introduce yourself a bit more and to talk a bit more about what's happening in local policing?
No, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor. So, as I mentioned, my name's Nick Hill. So I'm the new constituency inspector for Perry Barr. So I cover 4 wards altogether, including your one. Certainly, a lot of the work that we're involved in at the moment is around the connect and build side of work. So I'm really keen to help progress quite a few of the street watchers, business watchers, as well as working with local residents groups. And businesses to try and help improve those areas and to be as engaged as we can. Certainly Sergeant Gavin McGrath, who's the new sergeant for the area, has already been really active in terms of targeting some of those offenders in the evenings. And I know people are often worried about burglary type offences, and we've had some fantastic results in the last couple of weeks with some offenders locked up between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. So the local neighbourhood team have been out and about at the time that I would like them to be. One thing I'm trying to push the teams to do more of is I want us to be seen, and I know I went for a walk around with Councillor Miriam Jan earlier this week, and certainly for myself, I want to be as visible as I can, and I'm encouraging my officers to do the same. So I don't want you to just see the police car driving past. I'd like you to see the police officer walking past as well, because that's important. But one thing that I want to do is kind of really open the floor to local people for you to let me know what's important in your area, because I can help influence that and help put that towards the top of our agenda. So I'm here very much to listen, not impose my agenda, and see what's important to yourselves. And again, I can only apologise that I couldn't make it at the start of today's meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Jan just says thanks for the walkabouts, and there are other planned walkabouts, and the new sergeant is brill. He has been very helpful indeed, Sergeant McGrath. Is it McGrath or McGraw?
No, it's McGrath, so it's Sergeant Gavin McGrath, and yeah, I've been really impressed with his first few weeks. Incredibly proactive, and really leads his team fantastically well. So yeah, I think you're really lucky to have him.
Any comments or questions? Maureen.
I haven't really thought this question through yet, so I'm sort of winging it. But in my recent knowledge or experience, there's been an abduction on Rocky Lane. There's been a stabbing in Perry Hall Park, and there's something else that's just slipped my mind. What are the crime figures like at the moment? Is there an increase, or have you got any comment regarding that?
No, I do. Thanks, Maury. It's I think certainly the incident in Perry Hall Playing Park was absolutely horrendous. It was awful, and certainly I know the community would have felt it, and we felt that too. Certainly for ourselves, in terms of responding to that, these public open spaces are really crucial to us, both during spring and summer. So it's incredibly important that we are there policing those. In terms of the crime figures, actually in terms of that serious violence, there hasn't been what I'd call a spike in those numbers. I think the issue is that there's been 2 or 3 really serious incidents, which can kind of obviously really affect the way that people feel in the area, where they feel safe. I think as well with crime figures at the moment, it's really difficult because we've had 18 months of COVID now. So we initially saw a drop in crime because more people are working from home, more people are staying at home, and we've kind of seen a real decrease in burglary type offending and robbery style offending. But for me now, the challenge is to try to keep those numbers low as things slowly get to be whatever that new normal is. But in terms of, is there a real increase in offending? No. But has there been 2 or 3 serious instances? Absolutely, yes. And I feel that pain as much as everybody else. It's we don't want to be dealing with anything like that, because the amount of families, friends, and communities get affected, it's awful.
Thank you.
Helen, do you want to ask a question verbally, or do you want me to read it out, Helen? I think it's come to me directly. There's an issue on Rocky Lane, which has been raised. It's been raised by somebody who's here, but also been raised with me by another resident, about somebody on Rocky Lane who's scattering lots of cars over the pavement, and they seem to be wrecked cars. One of my correspondents has checked out the numbers of the cars, and most of them are taxed, but one of them has got an expired MOT. And the question is, what can you do to assist with a problem of this kind?
Yes, I think that question's come from Helen, so I can answer that. Without knowing the specific location, I don't want to be too specific, but certainly if cars are parking where they shouldn't be, if they're obstructing the pavement or obstructing where pedestrians should be walking past, then yes, absolutely, there is something we can do with that. Usually we'd like to kind of engage with whoever's doing that to start with and try to educate. But without knowing the specific problem, it sounds like that may be going on for some time. So I'd like to take that one away if I can do, so we can be really specific with that location. Then I will pass that to the local policing team to look at.
Is it between 50 and 60 Rocky Lane?
Can I just say they're obviously trading from the premises. They have many, they have many cars on their drive, and they're putting the wrecks on the pavements outside the other people's houses. They're not actually obstructing the pavement because the pavements are very wide, but they're leaving them there for months. They're not moving. They're just stuck there, basically, and they're not moving. I mean, one of the cars was outside my house for a couple of months, got the false number plates on. The police came and moved it. You probably got a record of that somewhere. And a couple of weeks later, they obviously reclaimed it, and it's been outside their front house for ever since, not moved. And that's a BMW.
Thank you, Helen. I think, like I said, it's a problem that I wasn't aware of before that location, but now that I am, I'll make sure that Gavin McGrath will tap into that first thing next week, because clearly it's going to not just be affecting you, but the local residents as well, and certainly sort of any kind of careless or inconsiderate.
I can tell you the number of the house, but obviously not in this forum, possibly.
No, that's fine, Helen. What I'll do is, if I put my email address in the chat, do you want to contact me via that way? Would that work?
We're sending something I'll send something through quite shortly too, and I'll refer this to planning as well if you think they're trading there. Because this was the question I asked the other guy who wasn't sure if they were trading, but if you think they're trading, then we'll refer it to planning department. John Ward, did you indicate to speak?
Yes, I did. Thank you, John. Question for Nick, really. He's going on about the stabbing in Ferry Hall Park. As the councillors are aware, and I know Helen is, our views on the cycle speedway track at the bottom of our garden. Nothing against the sport for the places to tip, but there are also, in the evenings, crowds of yobs collecting. There used to be a bench down there, which fortunately somebody's vandalised, so that stopped them a little bit. But they are creating problems with litter, smoking pot and various other noxious substances down there. And I just wondered if one of the evenings, one of your officers have a walk by through the park and just see what's going on, and perhaps give them a word of warning or something.
What's that exact location, John?
It's at the back of Derry Down Road and Rocky Lane. There's a cycle speedway, the Birmingham Monarchs. They've got some containers there they store the bikes in and various other things, but they also made a sort of a pit area with a lean-to with a roof on. Well, the roof disappeared, but there's still a bench there, and Yobs was congregating in the area, sitting on the bench in the evening and getting drunk or high on various substances, and leaving a lot of litter, which we try and keep on clearing up, but to no avail. But now they've wrecked the bench anyway. But if somebody could just keep their eye on things, it would put our mind at rest a bit anyway, right at the end of our garden.
John, is there any evening where it would be particularly beneficial for us to do that?
So it varies. I don't know who connect. It does vary. If there's anybody on the track, obviously, they tend to go away, but they do cause problems when the youngsters on the track trying to use the track, and these either teenagers or older stop the cyclists, which is hardly fair because the cyclists are no problem to anybody.
And
they end up going home. I think
we can't think of a specific night. Specific. They don't collect on a Monday night or a Wednesday night. They certainly don't collect normally on a Thursday, because that's when the Monarch Speedway have their meetings. But
it varies.
Varies. But it might be a good idea, while we've got all these grants going round, to see how much it would be to move the cycle speedway over to Perry Park by the BMX track and get all the cycling together, rather than have one untidy little corner stuck up in Perry Hall Park.
Well, John, we can hit that some evenings next week, so I'll make sure my officers are on patrol.
Nick, can I just say, there's a walk-in entrance just before the just before the Methodist Church. You walk
down the
into
slope,
the park,
yeah.
and you come down the slope to the cycle speedway, and there's an entrance just before on Rocky Lane, just before you get to the Methodist Church.
Open in the evenings, which of course is how the youngsters are getting in there.
Yeah.
Well, the gate's never locked, so it's permanently open.
Councillor Hunt, Joe's got a hand up.
That's right. I've seen that. I'm going to call Joe in a second. And Councillor Jan raised a question about stolen vehicles on Derry Down. So can I just take a couple together? So Miriam's raised a question about stolen vehicles on Derry Down, and can we hear from Joe, who's been waiting patiently for a while to speak? No, done mute.
Right, yeah. Sorry, yeah. And I know this has been raised with you, John, because I know I've raised it and my sister's also raised it, is the issue with speeding on the Beaches Road. I'm sure you're probably aware because the police were called a couple of weeks ago. Somebody left the road and landed in my sister's front garden. Luckily missed her car, trashed her neighbour's 2 cars. And it's not the first time it's happened. Somebody else used to live about 3 doors down and the same thing happened in their front garden. And I know, having conversations with Councillor Hunt, it's not an easy fix because you're almost punishing everybody because the actions of a few. But it's just the concern that, you know, that's a rat run to a school, to a senior school, a junior school, an infant school, a nursery. You know, it's the main route down to the Thornbridge estate from the Walsall Road. There's always people coming up and down there. It wasn't late at night and it happens a lot. And I mean, I can hear the cars sometimes racing down Beaches Road, and I live by the Beaches pub. So I just, you know, I don't know what the solution is, but, you know, I think there does need to be something done because it's very, very dangerous.
Miriam Jan's commented on this, saying possibly temporary cameras, and you touched on something else there, Joe, which is, I did send a note to Sergeant McGrath about this today, along with Highways, asking them to do an assessment. But the issue is, there was 2 issues on Beaches Road. I think one is dangerous drivers who terrorise the whole community, and could be picked up possibly anywhere. Tideswell Road on the back of that estate has been a lot of complaints from there about dangerous driving. Possibly on Beaches Road also some knock-on effects from the Walsall Road of people being very frustrated when they get off the Walsall Road, and some people, when they're frustrated, become angry and become bad drivers. So there may be temporary problems on Beaches Road caused by the pressures on the Walsall Road as well.
Are there any kind of traffic control measures on there at the moment? Like, is there anything in place to slow the traffic down, or is it just a kind of real wide throughway?
I think the issue with it is, like Councillor Hunt says, that when you come off the Walsall Road, you've probably been sat there for hours on the Walsall Road trying to get down, and the top of the road is very, very, very narrow, and then it just suddenly opens up, and it's almost as if it opens up in front of people, and the red mist just descends and away they go. But it opens up very fast on a bend, and I mean this guy lost control at Foden Road, and there's so many bounces on the curbs where this guy's lost control, and eventually went across 3 gardens. You know, by the grace of whomever, there was nobody walking down the road at that time.
I think a couple of things spring to mind, Joe. First and foremost, like I think we've all seen kind of headlines at times when you kind of get these incidents, and sometimes people tragically end up losing their life, and often it would be like an innocent pedestrian who's got absolutely nothing to do with what's happening, and we don't want that to happen there, especially with schools being nearby. Certainly from an enforcement point of view, that we can sometimes run joint operations with our traffic or CMPG, and they can come out, and statistically when they do come out, that can have a real impact in an area for between 4 to 6 weeks, just in terms of the way it changes drivers' behaviour, because word gets out that actually the police have done an operation there and that cars have been seized. And I think secondly, I don't know what's happened in the way of speed watch before, if there's been any kind of residents groups who've kind of done any speed watch type activity, but that's something that I could speak to our partnerships team. If any residents wants to get kind of active in that, then we'd support them in doing that. So that's the first two things that sprung to my mind. But again, I'll probably happily sit down with Gavin McGrath, Joe, and see if we can come up with any other options as well. But that's two solutions to start with.
Brilliant, thank you.
We were getting going with Speedwatch, Nick, as I'm sure Maureen has told you, mainly based on the existing street watch groups, and there had been some effort to get residents who were concerned about their own roads involved, but I don't think we're working too well. I'm going to ask the people on Beaches Road, and Joe, you could probably ask too, whether they'd be interested in taking part in a Speedwatch exercise with a radar gun.
My sister's already set up like a WhatsApp group for her section of the road, which is the bit where it seems to happen the most, because like I say, it happened to her mother-in-law who lived 5 doors down. So they're already sort of getting a little group together. So, you know, I think that they would definitely get involved, because, you know, what happened that night was quite frankly terrifying, and they're all ready to do something about it.
Ideal. As I say, I think that there are two problems on Beaches Road, and the Speedwatch might help deal with both of them, because the second problem is people who terrorise the community with dangerous driving in any case, and that some of the back roads you get complaints about this, and they're just showing off. And if they can be picked up by any means, and I know Speedwatch can't get them off the road, but you can get them onto your. You start to know who they are, don't you? From that kind of thing, that'll be really helpful. I just got a specific question around Speedwatch, if I may. Just checking there's nobody else wanted to come in. We're getting as a breakthrough for one of our communities a lorry ban, and that's been agreed, and it should be put in place in the next few weeks or months. I'm not sure when, and that's because it's been used as a very specific rat run by lorries from industrial businesses on the Walsall Road, and caused significant hazards and problems as well. And I wondered whether some enforcement of that might be combined with Speedwatch, because it was explained to us at the outset that we could have a lorry ban, but enforcing it would be difficult. In this day and age, I think it's less difficult, because it's not difficult to follow a vehicle that's contravening it through the zone, and produce video evidence that the vehicle is driven all the way through the zone. But I wondered whether also it might be possible to combine enforcement of the lorry ban with a Speedwatch exercise. So a Speedwatch team both was looking for dangerous driving on, say, Cliveden Avenue, which is affected, and was looking for lorries breaching the zone.
We're happy to support that, John, and actually you wouldn't have to issue many tickets or warnings to lorries or the companies that are doing that before the companies would make it quite clear to their drivers that they're not able to take that route. I think all of Birmingham's feeling the pressure at the moment with regards to the roads. I think there's so many road works everywhere that people are using all sorts of roads as rat runs at the moment, but that obviously impacts local communities. But we still need to kind of target harden and make sure those areas are safe. So yeah, I'd happily support that.
Yeah, this problem long predates the roadworks, although the rat running you referred to is now occurring, as you say, quite widespread on some of the other neighbourhoods off the Walsall Road, which is a problem, and it's taken a long time to get a lorry ban. So getting one in to deal with the present situation would be difficult. Are there any immediate questions for the inspector? If not, we've almost moved on to the item of any other business that was raised. Traffic. Any other?
I think, Councillor, somebody's asking questions about cameras. Are they kind of traffic enforcement cameras, or are they cameras looking for criminality? Sorry, I can't see who's asked that question.
Councillor Jan's asked that question. She is Galaxy Tab A. And I think she's talking about temporary traffic cameras in the light of the present discussion.
I'll be able to answer on kind of criminal cameras with more authority than I can on traffic. I'll probably have to take that action away because I don't know how easy it is to move those. I know our traffic department based it all on statistical data, so I wouldn't want to overpromise on that, but I can ask the question to find out what we can do in relation to that.
Any more questions or comments for the inspector? You're welcome to stay, Inspector, because I think we're going to discuss traffic. Maureen asked under any other business for a discussion about the present traffic problems and widespread restrictions that we have, which were not unexpected. Since this has been raised, can I just bring some breaking news to the meeting about traffic restrictions? Not good news, obviously. It may be good news when it's done because it might mean an end to some of the problems. The weekend, lost it. It just came through as an email a couple of hours ago. The weekend of, I've lost it now. It's about 2 weekends time. The A34 underpass through Perry Barr is going to be closed, as is, and the Birchfield roundabout is going to be severely restricted. And that's going to be for the whole weekend, starting Friday the 16th of July to Monday the 19th of July. Starting at 7 o'clock on the Friday night until 6 a.m. on the Monday. And that's because they are finally getting on with the work on the Birchfield roundabout. They're bringing in some large beams to put across the roundabout, which will form the basis of the what they call a new bridge, the closure of that roundabout, which might actually at least signal some hope of the work down there being completed if they do that. But it does mean that weekend will be very, very difficult around Perry Barr. Right. Maureen, did you want to otherwise introduce this item? Are you with us still? There we are, because you raised it as an any other business.
No, it's basically, I think you've broached the point of it, really. It's just that it's bedlam. I don't see a lot of diversion signs that would help relieve the pressure. The traffic lights seem to be a hindrance rather than a help. And that's Birchfield Island, that's coming off the Walsall Road. And as well as you say it wasn't entirely unexpected, but I don't think we were aware of the Newton Road, the works going on the Newton Road, and also all the work going on Aldridge Road, which we were sort of prompted about, but the central reservation works, it all seems to be, and I think you recall that I said, is it all going to happen as one? And we weren't led to believe it wasn't going to happen that way. So it was, that part of it was expected, but as wide ranging as the Newton Road, Walsall Road, Walsall Road, Church Road, Aldridge Road as one, it's madness.
Yeah.
In Hampstead
Village. Yeah.
I think that the problem, well, one of the problems is that you can't just plan a road closure in isolation, because we know in the city that somebody else is going to come along from some other agency organisation and organise their own road closure at the same time. Samwell Council appears to have organised its own road closures on the Newton Road. The developer converting the industrial site on the old Walsall Road, Hampstead area, is also decided to get on with their work at the same time, therefore impacting on the one diversion that was available through Handsworth Wood into town. In terms of the Walsall Road work, I've raised with the bus lane contractors and Transport for West Midlands the question of the excess number of cones. Obviously, it's quite difficult to get them to do anything about it. They just come back and say they're trying to minimise the problem and all the rest. And it's very difficult to stay on top of it as well. because cones appear all over the place. But there did seem to be a lot of cones put down without a great deal of work going on at the outset. I think some of them have been pulled back in the face of the problems they've caused. Some may not have been pulled back, and some may have been left in place when there's not a lot of activity. Karen.
Yeah, it's I'm speaking on behalf of Jay Sharma at the post office at Walsall Road. They've had no indication about what's going to happen for access to their shop. So they have people who are going into people who are obviously got to go into the post office, some of which are disabled. They obviously have deliveries, and they haven't had actually any notification from anyone. So I just thought he did ask me to mention it today.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought they were getting some engagement with the contractors last time I spoke to them.
Not at all.
TFWM.
No.
John Moore.
Yes, John, thank you. Just to answer Karen, I know when Transport for West Midlands first muted the sprint bus route up and down, they published a booklet showing where all the parking spaces were disappearing and where the sprint bus route was. And I know in front of the post office down there, there were no deliveries after, was it 7 in the morning until 10 or 11 in the day, and also no parking apart from all the trees disappearing up the Walsall Road as well.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, John.
To say there's no information, it was out there, but it was a long time ago.
And
I think the concern is about the impact of the actual work on them at the moment.
Yeah.
Which is restricting the vehicle access even more, because there's no access at all unless you can. Well, you have to go on the pub car park basically if you need to come by vehicle.
Well, if you have deliveries and stuff like that, and it's not, as far as I understand, it's not just the post office, it's going all the way back up to the dentist, the doctors, and all the way up to the Hanif's places. So that there's lots of issues. You're my councillor. I'm putting food to you.
No, that's fine. I'll see him soon anyway and ask him how he's getting on. In general, with this roadworks, it's actually worth complaining. It is worth complaining, although we feel powerless in the face of it all, because people do go and move cones, and they do take a fresh look at things, and they do take a fresh look at traffic lights and stuff. The problem myself and Moriam have is that if people only complain to us, we get completely overwhelmed with the complaints, particularly as we really did our best over the last few years to ensure it didn't happen like this.
Most definitely, John. Yeah. I totally agree with you.
We knew it was going to be stressful this year and next year in advance of the Commonwealth Games. The problem for me is the additional stresses that have been placed by unnecessary work, and really, really unnecessary work. And I told them again on Tuesday, I had a meeting face to face in public with a cabinet member for transport, and he accused me of being against motherhood and apple pie, and I said he misunderstood. I was just against bad projects. John Moore.
Yes, John, just thank you for coming again. I think Barbara and I complain regularly to Transport for West Midlands over sprint bus and the works and whatever else. We've had some beautiful answers from them, all meaningless, but at least they do reply to our queries. I mean, the classic one, we said, what about people who get on the sprint bus and can't find a seat and have got to have a long journey and possibly be disabled or elderly And they said, well, they can always wait for an ordinary bus.
True, that is.
That's
Have it
true.
in print. Yeah, precisely.
Was that true?
Yes, yes, we had a letter from them that
I've
said
got
that.
a letter with it on. Yeah. And then you give up then. Basically, nobody gives a damn about this area. I really don't.
Apart from us.
Apart from those of us who are trying to make it livable. We've been pretty patient as a community, I think, because we have tolerated the most awful traffic jams and impossible to get out of the area at certain times of day, which is not really good enough. But who cares? Except us.
Well, I'm still here, mate.
There was a strategy that was being devised, which is of let the residents go through maximum pain in advance of the games, and once it all happens, we'll all think it's wonderful, and everybody will be very happy and forget the pain that was inflicted.
I don't think so.
Thankfully, there were some areas where that was rowed back on, like the removal of the Walsall Road allotments didn't happen. And actually the bus lanes were amended quite significantly as well in the face of the consultation. So some changes got made. Maureen.
Sorry, who are we complaining to? Who you suggest we complain to?
Well, we've been complaining to Transport West Midlands, Transport for West Midlands, which has now changed its name, I understand, about Sprint Bus and the route, as they're doing all the planning for that. But
would that affect the number of cones and the traffic lights and the diversion signs? Would they be responsible for all that?
Not all of it, but some of it.
Okay.
We're responsible for the work on the Walsall Road, Transport for West Midlands, the bus lane work. The work at Perry Barr is primarily the responsibility of the City Council. I was a bit disturbed again on Tuesday that the Cabinet member was starting to pass the buck and say that other people were responsible for the work on the station, other bits and pieces of work. Well, that's not the point, because we all knew it was all going to happen all at once. And the City Council is responsible for that. So,
oh, you're not talking about Wazim, are you?
No names, no pack drills. I was happy from the truth.
I was disappointed on many levels about that, because the station is actually worth doing, the station work, and it's all, you know, that's a very collaborative thing which everybody wanted to see happen. That you don't have to play politics with that one. The design was awful, and the revised design was not much better, but it still needed doing. So the work down there is the City Council mainly, Maureen. Well, it's a private contractor, like on the old Walsall Road. City Council has supervision of it, so City Council again. Sometimes people pop up with temporary traffic lights. You know, they're digging up the road for waterworks or whatever.
The temporary lights have gone now, John. They were cleared.
On the Church Road one
this morning.
Church Road was unilaterally closed for about a week or so when all this was happening, so you couldn't get through Church Road, and that was closed by the water company. When it's happened on my road and they put lights in place and simply left the lights and finished the work, I've been tempted to go and pull the plug on the lights, on the electricity. But if you see that happening, it's worth just talking to the local workers first of all, and explaining to them the problems that may be being caused, and then trying to find out who's overseeing the work. As I said, as councillors, if people, we want to know what's going on, and we will handle complaints, but sometimes by just expressing your feelings to somebody more directly at Transport for West Midlands or the Birmingham City Council helps us as well as helping you. Similarly, the MP is there to be complained to. who else can be complained to?
The
The government transport minister, the government.
yeah, the mayor of the West Midlands.
Or mayor of the West Midlands, yes.
So, sorry, who are we complaining to at the city council?
Well, that's your thing, isn't it? You got a choice. You either track down the people in charge and their email addresses. So the councillor Zaffa, who was referred to just now as the cabinet member for transport, a gentleman called Kevin Hicks is in charge of the transportation department. Or you go through the contact centre and you just lodge a complaint through the 303 1111 number.
Right, okay. Okay, and encourage as many people to do that as possible, I guess.
Well, as I say, I think, people say to me, what's the point? They're just going to carry on, but they do make a small difference sometimes, because sometimes they're not aware of the consequences of immediate stuff they're doing, like changing the timing on a traffic lights or putting cones down which they're not using.
Because I know that there's taxi drivers are having problems, and I don't know whether they've expressed their ire to you at all, or whether that's just going to the council. It's a huge knock-on problem that, if only somebody had foreseen that it was going to be so awful. But the fact that it's being added to by another council is just making it impossible.
What we always made was that, as I said earlier, you couldn't do it in isolation, because there was always going to be something else. We know that if there's a motorway closure, it has huge impact on our area. If there's a closure of the motorway, and junction 10 is being closed, or was it closed last weekend? But sometimes there's an accident closes the motorway, or some necessary work closes it, and all the traffic gets diverted through northwest Birmingham. We knew that there would be other things that happen, because it happens in our area, in the centre of the country's transport network.
So basically it's have a moan, but there's no guarantee that anything will change about it. Nothing will come
but they're
of
not
it.
going to pull the big projects, are they? They're going to try, they're going to complete.
No, I'm not asking them to pull anything. I'm asking, first of all, I'm suggesting that maybe there could be greater use of diversions, ways to bypass it. I can't think of a way off the top of my head right now, but as a suggestion, rather than being negative, that maybe they can look at the timing of the traffic lights. They can make better use of diversions, and perhaps temporarily, during the rush hour, for example, stop the work and allow people free flow around that area, then recommence. I know we're talking money here, and that's not, but that's just a suggestion rather than just being completely negative. There must be ways to help this rather than have such serious disruption.
Just goes
It's always worth raising the point, and I had some questions about the timing of the traffic lights down at Perry Barr. In terms of diversions, again, I just think it was a foreseeable problem, which I asked and others asked repeatedly during the planning of this work, how the diversions were going to work, because we knew the diversions that were available were around Aston, which is already congested, or around Handsworth Wood, which is already congested.
Exactly.
And the Handsworth Wood is now even more congested because of the work on the old Walsall Road.
Exactly.
The only other alternative is back on the motorway. Well, Scott Arms is even more congested. John Moore, is that a hand up?
Yes, yeah, it's me again, John. Yeah, one of the problems that concerns, that worries me, is if there's a major incident on the M6 northbound between Spaghetti and Great Barr. I mean, previously they used to divert the cars along Victoria Road to Aston and up the Walsall Road back onto the motorway at Great Barr. They can't do that now. The Walsall Road wouldn't stand it. You can hardly take the traffic that's on it at the moment without diverting all the motorway traffic along it. So, what are they doing about that? Where are they going now instead of using the Walsall Road?
They can do is a big wide diversion on the toll road and on the M40, M42 network.
Yes, if they
They'd
want
have to do that.
put the money hands in the pocket. Yeah.
Councillor Hunt, Joe's got a hand up.
Joe.
Yeah, just with regards to comments about the traffic, I'm in the fortunate position at the moment that my company are paying for me to get to work and home again with taxis, which is getting increased. Sorry, my cat's just about to walk past the screen, which is getting increasingly difficult because taxi companies won't come to Great Barr now. If they're not here, they will not come. They just won't have it. I've gone from paying £8 or £9 for a taxi to sometimes 24, 25, 30 pounds because they're charging extra because of the chaos at Perry Barr. And it is purely because of that. The taxi drivers have said to me, it is purely because of that. So I got canny, you know, I work just outside the Jewellery Quarter, between the Jewellery Quarter and the city centre. So I would get a taxi down Newell Street, out via Old Snow Hill, up onto the A38, up towards the Lichfield Road to Whitton, so by Villa Park, and then from the island at Villa Park right down towards Whitton Road, and then through Holford Drive onto Holford Drive by the tip. Whitton Road is now closed. There are traffic lights outside the tip. There's roadworks off Church Road towards Villa Park. I can't come through Hampstead because Handsworth Wood is chaos. I can't go down the College Road. I can't go down the Aldridge Road. I can't go down the King's Standing Road because they're all down to one lane. So it is becoming increasingly impossible for me to get to and from work. And there is no time that I can foresee I'm going to start using the buses again. Absolutely not, because that's going to take me hours to get home. Whereas at least now in a taxi, we can pick our way through. But it's going, like I say, it's gone from £6 to £9 to £25 to £30 a trip. And that is purely because they do not want to come to this side of the city.
I think somebody should be told that. Councillor Jan has somebody's been told that several times, because I'm on the email list that I get the weekly updates, and every week I reply to the people who send me that, telling them the latest road closure is just adding to the problem. Okay, I think we should put it in the media, Joe. I think they might be interested. Mariam Jan has put these comments in, so I'll read them out for the record. Thanks, Mariam. We argued this in full council. The opposition party didn't listen. Mariam, she says, there's a domino effect. I don't think they thought this far. Too many big projects and not much of thinking of potential consequences. She says, Joe, it's a nightmare. I can get to London quicker. Me and, I think she might mean me, really thought this, and buses will take even longer. Poor passengers and taxi passengers. Yeah. Well, I'm paying the clean air zone charge because I'm not even attempting to get into town on a bus. The only thing it does is it makes me minimise my journeys. One of the intentions of the clean air zone charge, as I'm sure anybody who can is trying to do, but we still have to get out occasionally, don't we? And we still have to get about, and there are some people who have to get out on a daily basis, who are finding life really, really miserable. Any more comments on that? One of those comments prompted me to share some more bad news with you. Holford Drive tip is closing on July the 31st. And that's because they're rebuilding the site with a new tip, and it'll be about 2 years to work. So Holford Drive will not be available to us anymore as a local tip. We'll have to travel to Castle Bromwich.
What date was that, John, please?
July the 31st, I believe. If I've got this correct.
Where's the other tip, John, that we can use?
Well, from recollection, I saw Castle Bromwich mentioned as being a place where a tip is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, we can always go through the Scott Arms onto the motorway network off it.
How about Sutton? Could we use Sutton?
No, we're not Sutton residents.
We're not allowed into Sutton. You have to have a passport.
Bloody.
Right, the email. I'll try and share the details on some of our social media pages in the next couple of days. And in any case, right. So some ups and some downs in this meeting. Some mountains and some valleys, I think, in our lives. Anything else anybody wants to raise under any other business quickly? Maureen, you're on mute.
Sorry, thought it'd come off mute. Are they on time now, or is this work likely to go on longer than was planned? Have you any ideas?
I don't know, unless I can lay my hands on an original project plan. I keep asking the question. It seemed to me to have taken an awful long time to get this topping up work at Birchfield Roundabout to happen, well over a year. But they keep telling me it's on schedule. At the same time, however, there was this little moan about the railway station work interfering with the project, which was entirely, of course, predictable. I'm not going to attempt to be ironic. It was entirely predictable that all these projects would find themselves in conflict with each other. Exactly. So when we ask the question, they say they're on time, on schedule, and on budget.
So we don't believe them, is what you're saying. Do we believe them?
I thought they were going to do the Birchfield Roundabout before demolishing the flyover. Sorry, Karen, you were trying to get him.
Yeah, it's just the fact that we've got a new plan for what's happening in Perry Park. So we've got 2 miles going on that we didn't know about. That's going to go to Cabinet, is it, next week? Couple of weeks, I think.
7th, I think it is.
It's going to be passed anyway, isn't it? So we're going to have 2 roads basically in Perry Park.
A second road on top of the one that was being put in.
No, again.
A second road on top of the one that's been put in behind the flats.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to have 2. We had a consultation that's going to go. It's going to go to Cabinet, and it will be passed next week, I think, or mid.
27th of July is a Cabinet meeting. I know it's got a huge agenda.
Then it's all going to be passed, and then everything's going to happen. We had no notice of this whatsoever.
One that they haven't consulted us about.
Really?
Well, that's what you're telling me, because you're telling me something. Yeah, we knew about the one road.
No, there's 2. There are 2. There are going to be 2 moles going up from Church Road. Next to the cricket ground. So there are going to be 2 thingies going there. They're taking more trees down again. We were, however, and if Neil's still here, he may have seen these items put forward. We had like all this malarkey, and it's going to go to Cabinet to do the overlaying. That's what they're calling it, the overlaying of Perry Park.
I get to attend that Cabinet meeting, although I get to say a lot at Cabinet meetings, but it has absolutely no influence on the result. Usually,
you haven't seen these these items then.
However, we do. If there is a second road going in which we're unhappy about, we do have recourse to using the call-in procedure.
They're doing it already, John. They're actually doing it already. Even though it has
a decision that they're taking at Cabinet.
even though it hasn't
Sitting
been
there
passed by
taking a
cabinet.
cabinet.
You know the big oak tree in the middle of Perry Park? That tree may be taken down.
Better not be.
It is proposed that it may be.
That's
Have you not seen these then? Well, Val and I can send you through that stuff.
wait
But
last week, so I might have missed something.
I had something from Jade Tilley, you know, the about they were having to take a sapling down for this new road, but they were replacing it with 2 others after the games when they were in legacy mode.
If you look at John, if you look at the new plans now, I can send you through because we.
I haven't seen any plans from planning or anything else.
If you look at them, they've got 2 miles now. Traffic moles going up and down, and that big tree in the middle of the park is proposed to come down.
Well, we've got there's a stadium meeting in the middle of this month, so
yeah.
Too late, they'll have it down by then.
I mean, Helen, if you're still there, then this is major stuff.
I can't see the logic of taking it down, except are there electrical works there or something? There's a metal container, whether it's something to do with that, I don't know.
No, as far as we can work, as far as Val and I can work out, you know, the big tree right in the centre where there is the thing there, they're thinking of taking that tree down.
Yeah, can't see why.
Describe for me more precisely where the tree is. Can you describe more precisely where the tree is?
If you come up from Church Road, up the road,
yeah,
and then if you look on your right, there's a very big tree, oak tree there. Yes. That's the one they want to take down.
Right at Perry Villa.
John, if you stand in the car park and look towards where they're building, it's the big tree that's in the middle of the park. Stands in isolation in the middle of
the car park by the playground.
Oh no, much further into the centre of Perry Park. I cannot believe, John, that you have.
I'm sure I have, but I just haven't. I'm unobservant. I hadn't identified all the individual trees. Somebody may have to show me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as Miriam says, happy to meet up and look. I think it might be helpful just to have a walkabout.
Oh, most definitely. Well, you know, we do our sort of Monday walk around, but no.
We do it on Monday.
We're also worried about the.
What time are you there on Monday, Karen?
Well, we meet up about 10:30, 11 o'clock.
In the morning. Okay.
Not at night.
Easy to can't see the tree at night.
Nice at night, Perry Park. It's well lit.
There's lots of things going on in Perry Park at 11:30 at night.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Miriam says, where do you meet? Where do you meet, she says.
So no, there's Jon Hunt, you do need to have a look at the revised plans because they do not bear any resemblance to the ones that we saw 3 years ago. And these are the overlaying things. Quite a few of us have put stuff back to Matt's, whatever his name is, to say when are the trees coming down and when are the road works going down and all this malarkey and Perry Avenue and all that. So you want to read it.
Okay.
It's quite distressing.
Well, they're allowed to do
okay, I think it's probably just past 9 o'clock. Is there any very urgent short business? We'll try and meet you on Monday morning, Karen.
Yep.
And have a look. I'll be there shortly after 11, if at all possible. Barring anything else happening. Miriam says where?
We usually meet up at outside the BMX, and then we do our little trolley bit around.
BMX end. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, everybody. I think we're down to 9 people now. Thank you. Oh, Nick Hill's still here. Thanks very much, Inspector Hill, for staying and listening. I don't know if you're still listening. You're probably not, but
You're here, Councillor. I wanted to make up for being late, so yeah, apologies.
Well, thank you, and thank you very much for your patience, because any other business in a ward forum is usually quite difficult to follow. Let's put it like that. But there's always stuff that's important to the community that we have to talk about.
That's a footpath. Legacy
They're still
engagement.
chopping the bloody tree down.
No, it's taken,
Right, in terms of, there's nothing on the agenda about date and time of next meeting, because we get to set that as councillors, but we're expecting a couple of things to happen in the next few months. All right, in terms of the next future meetings, there's a couple of that we're expecting to happen. One is the meeting about the Commonwealth Games grants, possibly mid-August. Also a meeting about the Perry Barr Master Plan, which we may ask Kay to help convene in late July. We did pencil in the date of 28th of July. Kay's probably not aware of that. I don't know if you are, Kay.
No, I am. I've got it in my diary.
Okay, so we penciled that in. So we might convene a special meeting about this Perry Barr Master Plan consultation. As I said, beyond that, we're hoping to return to the cycle of one ward forum every 3 months on the third Wednesday. Is it the third or the fourth Wednesday of the month? Fourth Wednesday, isn't it? Fourth Wednesday of the month at Perry Hall Methodist Church, and we're currently filling in their health and safety assessments to be allowed back. Otherwise, so see you all soon in one place or another. Thank you for your attendance.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Take care, all.
Good night.